I want to be speaking to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So here are a few mistakes that people make in Jewish philosophy, some even in Hasidic philosophy. So the first thing people need to know is that when it comes to the philosophy of Judaism, Chabad is way ahead, beginning with Tanya and 7 generations since Tanya, the development of the knowledge of God and the understanding of the hashkafa. So people should study and listen when it comes to philosophy or hashkafa. One very basic mistake. Isn't it a great virtue that we obey God's commandments without question? And without question doesn't mean we're not skeptical. It means much more than that. Without question means we don't need to know why. We don't ask why. Beginning with the event at Mount Sinai. At Har Sinai, we said Naaseh first and then Nishma. The virtue of it is we said we will do, then we'll find out what it is exactly that we're doing. So the obedience comes before the knowledge. That is a virtue, isn't it? God says you listen. So why even have a philosophy? Why even bother understanding? It seems that the more you understand, the less special it becomes because it is so humble and so simple and so obedient to just do what you're told without needing to satisfy your mind. Like saying, yeah, but I don't understand. So what if you don't understand? What does that have to do with anything? That's humble, that's good, that's holy, it's godly. But it's a terrible mistake. To say we do mitzvahs for no reason, we obey God for no reason, what is that saying? That the fact that God asks us to do it is not enough a reason? Is not the best reason? The only reason? So it's not true we do it with no reason. That's so childish. You tell a child, just do what you're told. That's not humility, that's childish. Or maybe even intellectually lazy. The virtue of obeying is not because you're doing it without a reason, it's because you're doing it for the best reason. He asked. Mo Hashem Elokecha sheyil me'imach. What is God asking? That you do such and such. Well, you need a better reason than that. So what does it mean you're doing it for no reason? Brainless, mindless, ignorant? That is not a virtue. So be careful how you say it. You don't say we do mitzvahs for no reason. We do mitzvahs for the original reason. God asks, best reason in the world. And that's why the Mishnah says, don't be like a servant who serves his master for the sake of a reward, but be like the servant who serves his master without thought of a reward. This is telling us a lot. And that's why it's such a long, lengthy, you could simply say, don't do mitzvahs for the reward. First of all, it tells us that there is a reward, which we're not supposed to think about. But secondly, it tells us there's a master. The word Rav means great. The great person is asking you to do something. You don't need a reward. For the same reason, you don't need an excuse, because you already have the best excuse and the best reward. You can do something for this great person, but you need to get paid. You can do something for this great person and you need more of a reason to do it? Of course not. So, one thing is very clear: we don't do mitzvahs for no reason. We do it for the ultimate reason. And we don't need a reward, because doing something for him is the ultimate reward. Now let's move on to another mistake. The virtue, the opportunity to do something that he asks is so incredible that we need no further justification or bribes. To do for him is the greatest thing in the world. To do for him something he finds significant, necessary, important, right? So we're told it's important, mitzvahs, they're important, they're necessary, they're great, because it gets you to heaven. It gets you to a place of righteousness, holiness, whatever it is, right? So the importance is for you, which kind of contradicts the first statement that we don't do it for ourselves, we're doing it for him. If he is telling us that this is really important for us, then why are we doing it? Because he asked? No, we're doing it because it must be really important for us. So if he's giving us good advice, we certainly aren't doing it for no reason. We're doing it for selfish reason, which is complete confusion. So the virtue of doing something for him, like the servant who serves his master, the servant isn't going to do something that the master doesn't want or appreciate or need. So now the question is, here we are, as people argue, we are just servants of God. We do what he tells us. If you're the servant, then you do what the master requires. If the master is telling you to do things for your own sake, you're not a servant anymore, because you're now serving yourself. So let's stick to the idea that it is a great virtue just to do what he asks because he asks. So if he asks us to do something which is important to him, there's no greater reward and there's no greater compliment. We can do something for him. The humility of it is not that we didn't ask. The humility of it is that we can get pleasure from doing something that he needs rather than something we need. To say he doesn't need it ruins the whole picture. In fact, according to God himself, the owner of a slave is not allowed to ask the slave to do something that the owner does not need, because that's mental cruelty. Let's move on. Chassidus explains that all of creation, all of existence, everything that is, once didn't exist. And because it once didn't exist, even now that it does exist, it's not true. It's real, but it's not a true existence. Because if it once wasn't, then it really isn't. Sure, God can make it, but that means that it can't make itself. It can't exist by itself. So it's not a real existence. It's a manufactured existence. Only God, Rambam says, only God himself exists properly. Why? Because he never didn't exist. He didn't come into existence. He is real existence. Everything else is not. Obviously, that's true. And it makes a lot of sense. There's one creator, and then everything else is creation. What's the difference? A creator always existed. Creation always did not until it was created. So the difference is immense. One is called a true existence, and the other is a possible existence. It exists because it's possible to create it, not because it needs to exist. Whereas God is an absolute existence. He can't not exist. This is true not only of earth, but also of heaven. Heaven didn't always exist. Even divine qualities did not always exist. Like God had to create kindness. God had to create compassion. They didn't always exist. Now, the important question is, in what category does the Torah fit? God's commandments, God's Torah, did it once not exist and God created it? Or is it so much a part of God that it always existed and it is not part of creation? It's such a fundamental and basic concept. The Torah is the blueprint for creation. It is not a created being. All of creation was created in accordance with the Torah. So Torah obviously, clearly, pre-exists creation. Not only creation of earth, it pre-exists the creation of heaven. It pre-exists the creation of kindness and compassion and wisdom and all the virtues that we attribute to God.
Even though it says Oraisa Mechachma Nafkas, it came from his wisdom.
It came out of wisdom. It doesn't say it was created out of wisdom.
It came, it was expressed through God's wisdom, but
right. It expresses God's wisdom. Right? Now people make the argument, wait a minute, doesn't it say it arose in God's will? Doesn't that imply that it wasn't always there? Not only that, God's will is a free will. Not only a free will, but an essential will. A rotzen poshet. What does poshet mean? Without any additional ingredients. No added ingredients. It's just God's will, nothing more. It's not will based on a purpose. It's not will based on an intelligent reason. It's pure will. That seems to imply that God did not really want it at all until this very simple, basic will arose in God. to make it even more clear, most human needs are not simple or essential. There's always another ingredient. I want to make money. Why? Because I want to make money. No. I want to make money because I discovered that money is useful. It can get you good things. You can buy good stuff. So if money became worthless, why would I want money? So my desire for money is not a pure desire. It's made up of parts. So it is divisible. You can separate the parts, you can add parts. Even the desire to live might also have elements of, life is enjoyable. I'm afraid of the unknown, so I don't want to die. There are different aspects to that will to live. Although even a fetus has a will to live, and that's a pretty basic, pre-intelligent. There's also this thing in the Torah that a person without a house is not a person. You're just not a person. So that seems to be a pretty basic need. It is just what you are. You're a human being, and you can't be a human being without a house, a home. So not all human want is made up of parts. There are one or two pure needs.
So having a house is one of them?
Yeah.
And you don't feel human without a house because there's no reason?
Because we're created in God's image, and God wants a home in the lowest world. So we have that same.
But even a home represents that you could fully express yourself. So that's your real need.
Well, just be yourself.
Right.
So when we talk about need, we're not necessarily talking about something missing. Like, I need to breathe. I need to breathe? I am breathing. I've been breathing all day. So do I still need to breathe? I need to breathe even while I'm breathing. So it's not I need to breathe because I can't, because I'm lacking breath. So does the need to breathe mean I'm missing something? I'm not missing anything. I'm breathing. I still call it a need. Well, if you didn't breathe, but I am breathing and I need to breathe. The only problem is I need to breathe only if I care to live. So it doesn't, the word need in this case doesn't mean I'm lacking something. It means if I want to live, I need to breathe even as I'm breathing. So what is the human frailty there? The fact that I can't live without breathing. So do I really need to breathe? No. I really need to live. Right? What do we say about God's will? God's will is so pure, so essential. So when he wants Torah, he doesn't want it because of its benefits, because of something it will bring, because of something it will accomplish. He really wants the mitzvah. That's what it means by essential will. a rotzen poshet. So even if Torah was not beautiful, even if Torah was not wisdom, even if Torah was not holy, even if Torah didn't make the world more godly, he still wants it. That's called a pure, essential will. Not a means to an end, but an end in itself.
But he wants you to do the mitzvah. So when it says he was Yachid and he wants to be Echad. So he was one with the Torah, one with the Jew, but he wanted to be Echad.
We'll get to that.
Sorry.
So the definition of essential will means that the Torah is itself his will, not for any purpose, not for any result, not for anything. So if the world didn't exist, he would still want the mitzvah. In fact, he wanted the mitzvah before the world existed. Now, what does it mean? It's a free will, a bechira chofshis. Bechira chofshis means not that nobody forced him. It means that there is no there's no need for this will to exist. Logic doesn't dictate that he should want it or choose it. Choosing it doesn't change anything at all. It's free of any other consideration. So, if it's free of all consideration, then what makes the choice? If A isn't better than B, why do I choose A? It's got to be something about A that makes it more desirable than B. Otherwise, why do I choose it? Free choice means there is nothing about A that makes it more desirable than B, and I choose it anyway. Well, then what kind of choice is that? And this is where people get confused. The word choice seems to imply options. It could have been B, and yet you chose A. If it could have been B, and you choose A, then there must be something about A that makes it different from B. But there is nothing. So when you say a free choice, you mean you chose it when there were no options at all. It was the only choice, and you chose it. So what kind of choice is that? Where does such a choice come from? That's why we have the expression rotzen atzmi. It's an essential choice. Essential means it comes from you. There's something about you, not about it. You, in your very essence, relates to this. And you don't relate to anything else. This suits your essence. Nothing else does. So the real question is, why do you even call it a choice? We call it a choice just to indicate that it comes from the essence and not from external justifications, reasons, purposes. So in the end, that which you choose freely, free choice, that which you choose simply, Ratzon Poshet, is in fact you. So this argument that Torah is not him, God chose the Torah. So if you think God chose the Torah with a free will and with an essential will. So was there ever an option? Could God have chosen the opposite of Torah? No, that doesn't fit him at all. Him, his essence. There are people who are convinced that to say that Torah is him is blasphemy. Is it also possible that to say that the Torah is not him is real blasphemy? That the Torah is not as true as him? Hashem emes, teirosei emes. If God is true, then the Torah is true. If Torah is true, then God is true. So, is there any indication anywhere that says that the Torah once didn't exist? It's a terrible concept. It undermines everything true and real. The same is true with the godly soul. The godly soul, which is literally a piece of God, did it once not exist? There's a piece of God that once didn't exist? Obviously, that can't be. So, understanding, which is brilliant and awesome, understanding how nothing else other than God is real, that's an amazing, profound teaching of Hasidus that changes our perspective on our own existence and the universe and so on. And it's all correct. Nothing created is as real as a creator. And there's great, deep, profound explanations and proofs and logic. It's amazing. You can't include Torah in that description. To say that the Torah is not God is to say that the Torah is not true. Just like creation is not true. Dangerous. So the problem is not with understanding how God can be essentially merged with the Torah. The problem is we don't understand how great the Torah is. And we're treating it as if it's one of God's creations, which obviously it's not. It's higher than creation, but still, it's not him. He chose it. There's where the problem becomes. So to say God needs the mitzvahs is blasphemous, but to say that God doesn't need the mitzvah is blasphemous against Torah. So how do we resolve this? So there are people who argue as follows. God cannot be restricted in any way at all. No restriction can be applied to him because he cannot change. So listen how this works out. On the one hand, God can't be affected by anything, including mitzvahs, including Torah, including the godly soul. God can't be affected. Why? Because to be affected means a change, and God does not change. At the very same time, out of the other side of your mouth, you're saying, Torah didn't always exist. God chose it. That's not a change. So if you say the Torah is not him, then something changed. Unless you're going to argue, no, nothing changed. He wants it, but it's okay without it. So wanting it is not a real change because he doesn't really want it. And yet you just finished telling me that it rose in his will. It's a simple will. So first you glorify the will, and then you dismiss it as totally unnecessary. If it's totally unnecessary, then see, you're explaining how God is not changed by it because he just wants it and doesn't really need it. Well, to want something you don't even need, that is the biggest change. That's not a change. You engaged in something frivolous, and that's not a change. The only way God wants Torah and there's no change is because Torah is him. So to understand how insignificant creation is beautiful. To include Torah in that, you just destroyed the whole world. One other thing. If you learn Hasidus, you get to understand how God cannot be restricted to any descriptions, to any limits, to any finite quantities or qualities. That's a very strong point, and to say that he is limited in any way is blasphemous, and it is. Then you turn around and say, therefore, he can't need a mitzvah because he's perfect. What did you just do? You said because he is perfect, he cannot need. Is that not a limit? You say that to him, all things are equal. There are no rules. And then you apply this hard, fast rule. If you're perfect, you can't need. Now, in the physical world, that's true. But you just said that he's not limited like human beings. You keep quoting, he's not a human being. He doesn't have a body. He doesn't have the form of a body. Don't attribute bodily functions to him. And then you turn around and say, oh, no, he's perfect. He can't have a scar. He is not perfect as a restriction. His perfection doesn't limit him, doesn't dictate his personality. So this is where the confusion is. People learn how insignificant all of creation is, and then come to such an erroneous conclusion that includes Torah. They understand what absolute existence is. It has no restrictions. It doesn't follow rules. You can't apply rules. He's not a body. He's not a human. He's not. But, well, you can't be perfect and need something at the same time. Who can't? A creation. So the thought process kind of short circuits at some point, and the conclusion comes out wrong. So rethink it. Don't be so smug in your simplicity. And certainly don't say we do mitzvahs for no reason. That's blasphemous. Like saying God is not enough of a reason. Particularly if this will of God comes from Himself, it's His essence. That's not the best reason to do the mitzvah. That's considered arrogant. God needs the mitzvah, and that makes me important. How do you figure? The more important the mitzvah is to God, the more important I become. Yeah, to Him, not to me. That we are important to Him, that's not arrogance. Important to yourself is arrogance. Somebody told the Rebbe that his mother, Rebbe Tzanchana, said that he is greater than all the great people she ever met. And the Rebbe says, well, that's a mother. He didn't say, no, I'm not as great as she thinks she is. A mother thinks her kid is great. That's my arrogance? Yes, to my mother, I am very great. That's humility, not arrogance. So that God needs us is arrogance? If God needs you, then your need becomes nothing. Your ego becomes nothing. It's all about His need. That is true humility. Maybe that's why people have such a hard time with it. It's a degree of humility we are not ready to face. That He gave us commandments because we need it and it's best for us. How arrogant is that? He is there to serve my needs. Yeah, that makes Him a great God. Makes Him your caddy. So, really, Hasidus Chabad is the final word on Hashkafa. Those who learn it should learn it seriously, carefully. Don't come with preconceived notions. And those who haven't learned it don't really know Jewish philosophy.
Okay, just a couple of questions. Does it say, like you say, with Leis Machshavet Tfisa but Tanya says, with Torah Kol Machshavet, is that a quote, Kol Machshavet Tfisa or?
Didn't I say that in Tanya?
I don't know, someone was asking me. Okay.
Yeah, it's in Tanya. Let me find it. Just to make sure. Okay.
Yeah.